So happy you can start, I guess. Just give me a thumbs up when we are right.
You guys are live now.
Okay. So should we wait for a few minutes? Let other people also join.
Yeah, I'm ready whenever you guys tell me.
Give me just
Maybe let's wait for a minute for
yeah, sure.
everybody.
Yeah, so we will be waiting a few more minutes to get the people on board, then we can start.
So let me know if you're seeing the presentation now.
Yeah, your presentation is quite visible.
Okay.
Yeah, let me spell it out for you. A practical introduction to cybersecurity, right? Yeah, so
Okay.
okay, so we will begin, right, Shashank?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, so hello everyone who is watching us live over YouTube. So we are here with Shashank Jain, senior software developer from McAfee, who is working in cybersecurity. So today we will be touching upon very few interesting topics related to cybersecurity, and we'll be asking few interesting questions related to it from Shashank, and we will get to know the other perspective also, from which the world doesn't see cyberspace as. Also, if you guys have any questions to ask, please feel free to add on the Slido. We will be happy to take it at the end. So, very good evening, Shashank.
Good
I
evening.
hope you are safe and keeping yourself and your family safe during this COVID times.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just to start with, please tell us about yourself and your journey into the cybersecurity world.
Well, I was not always into the cybersecurity, as in I did not start my career in this domain. I was always a network guy. I did my masters in congestion control protocol. I did a lot of research on performance evaluation of network systems and congestion control protocol, and then I joined Intel as a network engineer, right? And even in Intel, majority of my projects or majority of the work I did was on network side, be it building interoperability protocol for Internet of Thing devices, or implementing evolving technologies like 3GPP evolving 3GPP standards like Wi-Fi calling, modifying lightweight IP stack for embedded systems. So it was all in all majorly on the network side, right? Uh, however, uh, However, during my stint at Intel, right, there's one thing which I learned, and when I look back, right, it seems to be like a solid steps towards the cybersecurity fundamentals which I've built over the years. right? And that was something called as SDLC. Now, when you talk about SDLC, a lot of people refer to it as software development
Life
lifecycle.
cycle. Yeah. Correct.
But in essence, this SDLC stands for Secure Development Lifecycle, and it
Oh,
basically talks about how security is an essential part of your design and architecture of the system itself, right? A lot of people take security as at a very later stage, but going through the content and working on those projects and going following this SDLC made me understand that in fact a lot of tools and technologies I learned over the years on this, all because of how SDLC taught me about security is not an aftermath. It has to be right there from the beginning, when you're thinking about designing your system, when you're thinking about architecting your system to build your entire solution, right? So so after doing all these things, spending multiple years at Intel, learning a lot of things, I got an opportunity to work in McAfee, and since then I've been majorly working on solving challenging problems in the domain of smart home security, IoT security, protecting users' digital assets, and things like that. Right. So that has been my journey into the cybersecurity domain.
so just at the beginning, you gave us a different perspective of SDLC per se,
Yeah.
security development life cycle. To be very honest, I wasn't aware of that life cycle if that exists, but yeah, it's pretty good to know.
Yeah.
So, can you please give us a brief discussion of what you are working on as of now in McAfee and how important it is, let's say in
Sure.
terms of end user, consumers, or even the organizations?
Right, right. So our team today, right, is working on solving a lot of complex and challenging problems in the smart home security space, right? As we all know, that smart home today is flooded with a lot of IoT devices. Not just IoT devices, there are increasing number of smart devices also coming into our daily lives, right? We all have like one mobile phone, a couple of laptops, then there are gaming systems, then there are smart IoT devices like bulbs, speakers, cameras, the voice assistants, right? And having this plethora of devices in your network brings in a lot of different challenges, right? So our team is constantly thriving to solve these challenges and make your secure home make your smart home a really secure place to be in.
Okay, okay. So, for for many of us, right, we relate cybersecurity as something to do with the protecting the attacks and data. As most of us seen in the sci-fi movies, right? There are tons of millions of codes going through the screen, right? So, can you explain a broader aspect that the one I mentioned, right?
Sure,
From which is different, and how does like cryptography fit into it?
sure.
Right? Yeah.
So, well, I guess like you have put the question right. A lot of people feel in a similar way that cybersecurity is all about protecting your systems from different kind of attacks, right? But what I would like to emphasize is think of it. It is actually much more than protecting from attack, right? It has a wider scope and a lot of things going in it, right? So think of it like let's say you are a real world car manufacturer,
Mm-hmm.
right? You are building some sort of car, right? Would you ever be building a car, right, without actually understanding where would it be driven, what who would be driving it, what kind of terrain it would be driven into, whether it would be a sand, it would be a hilly terrain, whether it would be an off-roader, or whether it would be a race car, right? And also the kind of security features you put onto the cars today, right? Like your ABS and EDS and airbags and bunch of different things, right? They all are customized solution based on the usage of the car, right? So if you don't think of all these aspects during the beginning, during the designing of the car itself, right? Then it's like building an Alto when your intention was to go for an off-roader, right? So so what would essentially happen is things would crumble, right? The systems you have put in place, the checks you have put in place will fail, right? Because the use case was entirely different. And same thing, right, is true with the softwares as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? And cybersecurity essentially, basically, the application of cybersecurity essentially should begin at the very early stage of the software development,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it is all about identifying the digital assets that your system has, that your system will be producing, or your system would be interacting with, right? All of them, not just what you have, what you produce, and what you would be interacting with. And putting in appropriate kind of checks and controls in places to protect those digital assets, right? And a lot of it, right, and a lot of cybersecurity tools and technologies we talk about usually, right, they basically help you in building out a system which is secure enough, which takes into account all the digital assets, and also takes into account and also defines what kind of checks and controls are there for each of this process, each of these components, right? And it is I would say a very interesting topic, very interesting question you brought here, right? And I would like to spend a little bit more time on it, because this is where the majority of confusion happens, right? Because if this is clear, right, your entire principle and entire basic understanding of cybersecurity will get to another level, right?
Sure, sure, please.
So I want to basically dig in a little bit, right? And I want to take a real life example. Let's take smart home as an example, and I would want to basically, each one of you who are listening to this talk, right, I would want you guys to first just have a look at this slide in front of you, and think of what kind of digital assets can be there in the slides. Just take a moment to think on it, and then we will see how we can break it down, right? Is there Shaurya, is there a mechanism in which they can post something on the chat or comments, or somebody is reading it? I would
Uh,
just want to probably get a feel of what direction people are thinking of.
yes. So I think do you have the YouTube link over which we are live? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so if you open that, there will be this chat window going around. So let me quickly share. Till then, I will request the audience to just think of the digital assets which Shashank has asked to do us, and we will come over it again. Sure.
Okay, so meanwhile, while you are evaluating, right? Let's also let's proceed further, right? I know this kind of interaction is little bit challenging when you are not able to interact live with the audiences,
Correct.
but yes, just try to understand this, right? So now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to break down this smart home
Mm-hmm.
into its various components, right? And that's where we will be able to identify digital assets, right? So
Sure.
so let's say first, right, in any smart home system you will have a controller device, right, which is usually a mobile device, right, where you install an app or something like that. And this is where you configure that device. If you bring in a new device, you use this particular app to configure that device, or you use this device or an app in this device to interact with the IoT device, right? Use its service. For example, if you take a light bulb, right, you would have an app to control that light bulb, turn on, turn off, change color, things like that, right? So this is a controller device, right? Moving on, right? Then you have bunch of different devices in your home network, right? It
Yeah,
could be.
so just related to that, we got a question, and the
Hmm.
question says, "Hi, tell us about the digital devices you are familiar with." And
Sorry,
then, so the question goes like, "Tell us about the digital devices that we are familiar with."
yeah,
Okay,
sure.
and the second, there are some suggestions like cellular system could be tapped into. Okay, yeah, so cellular system is one of the digital assets that people are claiming to be.
Correct. Surveillance system is your digital assets, right?
Yes.
Correct. So if you see in this particular side, there's a camera here which represents your surveillance system, right? Then there are thermostats. Then you would all be familiar with smart speakers like Amazon Echo, right, or Google Home Mini, right? All those IoT device constitute your smart home today, right? So this is the second layer of your smart home. So one big picture which you saw in the previous slide. Now I'm trying to break it down into various components itself. Right
Mm-hmm.
now, your smart home also has an internet gateway, right? Because that is an essential or the central component of your entire smart home. All the network connectivity, all the network access, all the communication going on through your smart home happens via the internet gateway. And finally, there are a bunch of cloud services, right, to which all your IoT device or the applications interact with, right, to deliver the functionality they are intended for,
Yeah.
right? So let's see what are the digital assets you find at the controller device level, right? Any guesses? Just try to guess yourself, and when I'll be presenting, right? Just check back with whether we are aligned on our thought process, right? So first, controller app. At the controller app level, right, you have your device,
Mm-hmm.
right? If app gets compromised, entire device gets compromised, right?
So just to add, so let's start. Let's take an example like some Alexa or Google Mini on device, right? Where
Yes.
we have that app which controls
Right.
the device,
So
right?
Amazon Alexa app, let's take that as an example, right? I
Sure.
want to, right? And if your Amazon Alexa app gets compromised in some way, right? It has access to your entire mobile phone, right? Your galleries, your storage, your different things, because a lot of you inherently give a lot of permissions to your mobile applications, right? Because otherwise a lot of functionalities don't work, right? And as part of that, what essentially happens is you are exposing your identity,
Mm-hmm.
your device itself, your personal private data, like which are there in your galleries, like your private videos, your photos of friends and families, your financial documents which you have downloaded from somewhere, your credit information, your account statements, and things like that, right? So all of them are the digital assets that, if you are building a mobile application,
Mm-hmm.
right, that you need to be aware of, that you need to take into account when you're building your system,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now moving on to a set of IoT devices, right? Again, the IoT devices here are critical assets. Now, in addition to the devices, right, you interact with these devices, like for example, again, Amazon Echo, you interact with these devices via voice command, right? So
Mm-hmm.
your voice is essentially a digital assets here, right? If things compromise, your voice samples are going to leak,
Mm-hmm.
right? Similarly, different services, if you have a network storage services, right, if you have a network hard disk where you store all your images and videos so that you can play it on any device whenever you want, right? All your images, videos, everything, right, they all become your they all are your personal private data, which become a digital asset that needs to be protected.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, the service you are using, right, and the way you are interacting with device, that is also a very critical piece. For example, I'll tell you one very interesting thing, right? The If you are using a smart light, right, the usage of that light basically so when you turn on and off, right, you are interacting with the device, right? And that
That digital
essentially,
bulb that we get, right? It's a
correct,
local light.
correct. Yeah, that bulb, right? So that because you are interacting it with your mobile phone, right? It is a network call, right? So there would be essentially some network traffic generating, and any adversary, right, or any attacker, if he's just silently listening to your network traffic, he can figure out, okay, this particular communication is consistently happening, and he can profile you, and he can identify when the user is at home or when he is not, right? Because if the interactions are happening, lights are on, user it as is at home. If lights are off, interactions are not happening, user it is not there or probably sleeping, right? So these are the kind of sophisticated attacks which people build in to profile you, looking at your device, looking at the interactions with your device, right? So all those accounts to be a digital asset, right? So I've just reached to two parts of your entire smart home structure, right? And you see a lot of different digital assets that have come up so far,
Mm-hmm.
right? While at the beginning we just had one picture of a lot of IoT device and gateway in there, right? So that is how cybersecurity builds in, right? It basically identifies different layers of your system, and then identify what are digital assets and how, and then enforce specific tools and technologies to protect those assets, right? So similarly, there is internet gateway where the all the communication happens, all the data is going through the internet gateway. If someone hacks into internet gateways, and if you read various blogs or various if you just search Google for
Mhm.
various router exploits available, right, you would be astonished to see the number of exploits out there, right? Because these are the devices, and especially in India, right? You imagine you would have Airtel or Act or some sort of connection in your home, right? They would
Mhm.
have brought in a router and installed it on your premise. How often do you see a security update or an update itself coming for those kind of router, right? If the vulnerability is there, it's out there in open, right? And a lot of time they don't get patched. So this is another challenge why the devices, if they get compromised, your entire IoT device, your entire smart home ecosystem will crumble, because this is the centralized entity, and
Mhm.
an attacker gaining access to this is kind of dangerous for the entire system. And then there are cloud services, right? So whatever interaction you are doing with, let's say, Amazon Eco device, again, whatever you are speaking, whatever you are interacting with. So for example, you say, Alexa, play this particular song, or Alexa, play this, read me a story, or something like that, right? All those
Mhm.
things are basically kept at the cloud service, right? So cloud services keep a track of what activities you are doing in order
Right.
to profile you and present you with a better services, right? Improve their
Mhm.
services, right? But what if the cloud gets compromised, cloud services gets compromised, all your profile or your tracking data, all your credentials, right? Everything gets leaked, right? And that's the, and then they're sold in after in a black market, right? So different layers have different kinds of digital assets, and
Mhm.
needs and there's a need to apply different cybersecurity tools and technologies at each of different layers in order to protect them. That's the key message I want to deliver via this, right? So take a smart home as one big picture, break it down into layer, and see each layer. You would find different kind of digital assets, and different kinds of cybersecurity principles and technologies would be responsible to protect different components of this, different layers of this smart home.
Okay,
Okay.
so this was a very wide and broad descriptive view related to the digital asset, right?
Yeah,
So
and
I would,
I guess I forgot about the second part of your question. This was, I guess it was how
how
cryptography fits into
cryptography
it,
fits
right?
into it.
Yeah, yeah. So sorry about that. Cryptography is essentially a very important part of cybersecurity, right? And it is used at almost all of this layer, right? Wherever you want to protect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the digital assets, right? You
Mhm.
use essentially use tend to use cryptography, right? For example, all your personal private data, you would want to keep them encrypted, right? And
Yeah.
you would use some sort of cryptographic techniques to encrypt them, and whenever you need to use them, you basically decrypt them and use it, right? So in fact, the network communication happening from your controller device to your IoT devices, or
Mhm.
from IoT devices to your cloud services, all basically are using HTTPS today, right?
Mhm.
HTTPS based on TLS, which is fundamentally built on top of a lot of cryptographic principles, right? There's
Yes.
a Diffie-Hellman key exchange which happens, and then there keys generated, and those keys are used for encryption and decryption, right?
Yeah.
So cryptography is essential. I would say very essential part of cybersecurity.
Okay, so so just a follow-up question after seeing all the details. By the way, just one clarification I need here. So the by the controller devices, we mean the routers and the stuff that are being placed, right? And the modems.
No. So the controller device I meant was the apps which are used to, or the devices which are used to control your IoT device,
Okay,
right?
so okay,
And
got it.
by internet gateway, I meant your routers, your modems, or your web gateways.
Cool. Thanks for the clarification. So I just have a follow-up question over this. So like, despite being so many challenges and the security of, let's say, these digital assets are very hard, as we can see. So what are the bottlenecks that you guys face while securing these systems?
All right. So I don't know if you have heard about this very famous quote. Security of your system is as strong as its weakest link, right? And that weakest link could be anywhere in your system, right? That is why I peeled it off into the layers, right? Your weakest link could be your app, the controller app. Your weakest link could be your IoT device. Your weakest link could be your internet gateway, or could be the cloud service, right? So you don't know, right? And the entire security of your smart home system also in this particular example will crumble if your weakest link is broken, right? No matter if you build a very secure IoT device, but you did not invest enough time and effort on building a secure controller application, right? It won't pay off, right? Now, in order to better understand this statement, right, the security is as strong as weakest link. Let's take another example. Again, let's take an example very much related to smart home. Now, what I've done is, this is the picture which we have seen earlier. Instead of all the IoT devices in your home network, what I did is I just took one IoT device, and this particular device is Belkin Vimo switch. Now imagine this as so you typically have a normal socket in your switchboard, right, where you plug in your laptop charger or things like that, right? So this device you plug in there, and this device connects to Wi-Fi. So now you can use your app to control this device and turn it on and off. And in turn, if you see there's a hole in there where you can plug in your actual device, right? Let's say, for example, you are plugging a night lamp there,
Okay.
right? Or a geyser there, right? You can basically now control that geyser from your mobile, right? You can turn on and off, right? So it is like a additional socket on top of a socket, but this particular socket controlled is network controlled, right? It can be, it's a smart socket. Let's take this as an example, and since I told you, right, that you can now control this particular device as from the network, so inherently that means there's a lot of network communication happens, right? Now let's try to understand how an attacker will basically try to attack the system. Okay, so imagine I am an attacker, right, and I somehow get access to let's say your internet gateway, your router, right? Because there are a lot of vulnerabilities in the router that we have already discussed about. So I exploited one of the vulnerability and I got into your system. Now what do I do, right? Being on the router, I just have to run a network scan, right? I can use any of the simple network tools like Nmap or any other port scanning tool, right? Now, if I run just a port scan on this network, I see that this particular device has port 80, port 443, port 49153 open on it. Now, we all know that 80 is typically used for HTTP, 443 is used for HTTPS, so there has to be some secure service running there. But what about 49153? That looks very interesting.
Yes.
Right? And now, the moment you find it interesting, you basically start Googling it, right? And you start digging onto it. You start trying to do some research on it. And what you find out is, this particular 49153 is typically used by Belkin devices for hosting UPnP services. UPnP is Universal Plug and Play Protocol. It is a local network and service discovery protocol, right? Forget about the terminologies. Forget about what these tools and technologies are used for, right? That you can read about later. But just try to understand how the attack is taking place. So a router compromised an internet gateway, did a network scan, right? Did a network scan, found out 49153, did a little bit of research, found out, okay, this is used for UPnP. Now, for people who understand UPnP, it is like service discovery protocol. So there's something called as SSDP Discover Scan, right? It is also a standard tool, right? So you can do a network discovery scan, and the moment you run that scan, what you find out is the IP address of this device and a file called and a location here, right? And this particular location, if you open it in your browser window, what you would find is setup.xml file contains list of all the services and commands that are accepted by this Wemo switch. Now, the reason it is available in plain text is a questionable thing, right? That clearly shows that design security was not considered as a part of design, right? But it also is, if you see that UPnP is typically used by your mobile app also to discover what device, if any Belkin device is there, and then connect to it, right? So it is useful for them also. But keeping it open, keeping it unencrypted was one big mistake that developers made, right? Now, what an attacker would do is he will just download that XML file, analyze it, and then stay silent for some time and try to just monitor the traffic going on in the network and see how a controller app is kind of interacting with the this particular device. And what he finds out is basically some sort of a SOAP is again a protocol, right? It's kind of an XML based exchange. So some messages were being exchanged over the network, and when you strip down those messages, again a simple TCP dump, right? A smaller version of, I would say, GUI-less version of Wireshark, right? If you run on the gateway, you would see all these packets. And once you see that, okay, commands are being sent via SOAP messages and commands are the ones, those are available in the setup.xml. So now you try to craft your own sort of SOAP messages with different simple commands, right? That's what an attacker will do. That's what anybody would do who will be interested in breaking open that device, right? So you start to craft those messages and try with some simple commands like ping, right? You would make him ping to your own service, or you would make him do something on your own services so that you know that, okay, that particular command is working. And once an attacker finds out that this particular command is working, he'll try with more sophisticated commands, right? He'll try a command which might not be available in the setup.xml file, but something like telnetd. Telnetd is a telnet daemon which runs on this device, and if telnet is enabled, you can basically log into the device and perform a lot of different things, right? So now he tries a telnet command, and after sending this telnet command, he tries to run a telnet on this device, and it works. The device throws you a password prompt, right? That, okay, now telnet as a service is enabled. Now you enter the password and you can go in. Now, where do I get password from? Where do an attacker get password from? Right? And a lot of these devices, right, they come with a default password, default username and password, and just a little bit of Googling will tell you what is the default password for it. And in most cases, it's admin, right? So username admin, password admin. Right? It's locking. It's like locking a door with some sort of stick, just a small stick, right? Not properly implementing your controls, right? And the moment an attacker tries to use this username and password, he basically gets into the system. And once he's into the system, there's absolutely anything he can do, right? Now, let me tell you, the sequence of steps I just explained you in the previous slide are the real sequence of steps an attacker has used to compromise this particular device, right? And it's a real attack. It happened, right? And if you have heard about IoT space, or if you have followed IoT or network security or cybersecurity space for some time, right? There was a Mirai attack, right? It was a very popular DDoS attack, right? Which essentially used a lot of your surveillance camera devices across the globe to attack some servers, right? And the attack was possible because all those devices were using default username and password,
And that is admin.
Yeah, a
Wow.
default username and password. No, it wasn't admin, but some other default username and password, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, right, if you see, attackers or cyber criminals basically operate by peeling your system in layers and trying to attack each layer at a time, right? And they'll keep trying till they are successful. They'll keep trying till they are successful. So leaving any of these, not able to identify any of these components, any of these digital assets that you have to protect,
Mm-hmm.
right, would essentially lead to a system which is vulnerable.
Okay, so one user from YouTube, name is Srinivas, has asked a question, and you have partially answered it, but just to connect with whatever is being shared, he asked, kindly talk about the different types of attacks which are common and how they are carried.
Which
So,
are, sorry?
which are carried out. So you have just gave a simple example of one sequence of attacks we can understand, and same way others will also will get carried, right? So the follow-up question is ARP poisoning still a thing?
Sorry,
AR,
is?
is ARP poisoning still a
Yes,
thing?
it is. Yes, it is. It is. It is. So it is the. I would say lot of home gateways today
Mm-hmm.
have the solutions built in to tackle app poisoning,
Mm-hmm.
right? But still, right, as we see, right, there are a lot of older gateways still in use, and it is very much possible, right? In fact, a lot of these attacks, when we are building some solutions, right, when we are trying out different things, we start by doing app poisoning, right? That's the kind of one of the attacks. And the different attacks you were talking about, I am not sure in what exact context you were talking about, but I spoke about an attack in this system where the network scan, the UPnP discovery, and especially crafting the soap packet, right, helped you gain one sort of access, right? Then this particular thing could lead to once a device is compromised, it could be used to make attack different system, right, which was
Correct.
like a DDoS attack, right? There are multiple such example. One thing, if I remember correctly, around 2015 or 2016 time frame,
Mm-hmm.
right? Ola Money came in, right? It was the beginning stage of Ola Money, right?
Correct.
And at that point of time, right, HTTP S was not very popular. So there was a recharge scam on Ola Money, right?
Yes.
If anybody, if you have read it, right? So what happened was the system was not designed properly.
I guess many of us
What
have also exploited it.
yeah, many of them exploited. So what essentially was happening there was, uh, so when you make a transaction to recharge your Ola Money wallet,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's an order ID generated, and and that order ID should have been unique for every transaction, and
Yes.
should have been validated that it is only should have
A
also been
unique.
validated at the other end, right? But it was not happening. So people were once recharged using same order ID and say different transaction value again and again to keep recharging their wallet without actually paying for it, right? So there are different kinds of attacks. We can discuss more on various other sophisticated attack at a later point of time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say breaking your system into layers, understanding what the digital assets you're trying to protect is the essential fundamental principle what you should take away from here.
So just the next question that what I was going to ask is the very common question that the students have in their academia. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the
Mm-hmm.
question goes like, what is the difference between the cybersecurity, right,
Mm-hmm.
we study in academics, and the one that's being used in the industry? As we all know, there is a huge gap between the academia and the practical approaches that are being used in industry, right? So how to fill that gap, and which are the sophisticated areas which a student should focus so that they are well versed or prepared for the industry, or
Sure.
maybe research.
Yeah. A very nice question, I would say, and a lot of people have this kind of confusion,
Mhm.
right? So, but what I would say is there are a lot of universities today which are offering a very good and competitive and industry oriented cybersecurity programs, right? To name few, Stanford is there, CMU is there. CMU is, I guess, one of the recent thing I read about them. I was listening to a talk by one of their professor, right? So it was so they are crafting a specialized program which basically prepares students to be ready for the industrial exposure, right? So these programs are there. However, I don't see such practical programs available in Indian universities, right? And I feel that there has to be some work definitely done over there, right? Now, talking about the where do you what do you do to build such categories, right? What I would say is uh, first and foremost is build your fundamentals, very solid fundamentals, and fundamentals in core computer science topics like operating system, networks, algorithms, data structures, right? Because this is the constant. This is the constant across whether you are working in cybersecurity or any other domain, right? And in cybersecurity, it is all the more very important because now you are dealing with kind of with different kind of attacks, different kind of things, right? Where attacker will be attacking your system when you don't even know, right? So you have to have your principles and fundamentals built solidly so that you understand how things work at the core, right? And then build a security around that. Then I would also want to say what I would also want to add is you as a student, right, you need to work on your debugging skills, right? Because what we observe is a lot of students they can write a lot of code, right? But debugging someone other's code or working on someone else's code, right, is what you would typically do in an industry, right? Because if you go in and join some company, right, you would not always get a new project to work on from the scratch. Usually you work on somebody else's code, you build on top of what is already there, right? So essentially being able to understand the system, understand its design, and build on top of it, right? And a lot of time debug that system to understand what is going on is very critical and core skill which is needed in all the aspects of cybersecurity. Right? And then I would say all of you need to take much more practical approach while reading and understanding about cybersecurity. A lot of time, in fact, the cryptographic question you asked earlier, right? You usually have a cryptography as a topic in some of the courses offered at the undergrad level or the postgrad level, right? Yes. And a lot of time, you end up just implementing some small encryption algorithm, decryption algorithm, and things like that, right? But you have to focus beyond that. If you have built an encryption algorithm and let's say you have heard that this particular encryption algorithm can be broken, research more on how it is broken. See if there are programs available. See if you can mimic them, right? And then there is also thing like there's something called as capture the flag. I don't know if you have heard of it. It's like an online programming contest, right? Like you participate in like students participate in competitive programming. This is also a competitive hacking programming where you're given a problem, you solve that problem. Maybe there's a vulnerability there that you have to identify. You have to identify an error in the code which would lead to some buffer overflow or some things like that, right? And once you solve that, you put an answer, you get a flag, right? And you move forward the stages, right? So I would say that you should start looking at this particular type of, in addition to your competitive programming, you should also look at the competitions like CTF and all that would help you build your analytical skill, problem solving skills, right? Where you have a strong fundamental of your core computer science topics, and then you are trying to basically practically apply that understanding of your subject to solve a particular problem in CTF, right? So that's where I feel CTFs are pretty good
Yeah.
at
So
building
for
this.
the students watching out there, uh, capture the flag is the event that Shashank is talking about, which is related to security attacks and secure domain, same as competitive programming, or the data science thing that you do on over Kaggle, right? So if you are interested in security, please go over and check it. Okay. So coming to the other question, and again, it's very different from the league that we following through, right?
Yeah.
So what is exciting about cybersecurity compared to the areas of research like you see combinatorics, complexity theory, or per se machine learning, right? So what do you see much more exciting in cybersecurity compared to these fields?
Yeah, another very interesting question, I would say. So, to me, right, cybersecurity is one of the more practical area than the others, I would say, and that is what makes it quite exciting, at least for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
To give you an analogy, right, it's like cybersecurity is like an arm race, right?
Mm-hmm.
The current, if you say, right, in an arm race, what happens is you build new weapons and also keep improving your defense system. Similarly, the attacker also is building new weapons and also improving his defense system,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you slow down, right, if you happen to slow down or if you slack even by a bit, right, the other party would take over, right, and that's where the problems would arise, right? So in such a situation, what would essentially happen is you would be holding a sword and a shield when the attacker is attacking you with a machine gun or a fighter jet, right, and you don't want to be in that position, right?
Correct.
So what I would say is cybersecurity to me is a very practical, very challenging field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because things keep changing very frequently,
Mm-hmm.
very frequently.
Mm-hmm. So just considering the time here, we are already 6:46. And when we talk about these interesting things, you don't know, right? How the time passes. And when the things are much more practical, right? So, but we will keep it short. But again, I'm sure we won't miss any questions around there.
Yeah.
So, uh, just out of the box, what are the current buzzwords in cybersecurity and how impactful they are?
Uh, well, the buzzwords are in cybersecurity. If you IoT would, I guess IoT would top any stats.
So
If you
basically, securing the IoT devices.
correct, securing the IoT device, then there's a lot of talk going around on privacy as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the definition of privacy has changed over the year. Right
Yes.
now, people have started taking privacy much more seriously
Seriously.
than they were taking it earlier. In terms of other thing, again, adversarial machine learning,
Mm-hmm.
because that is another key area of research which is very prominent from where I see. Then the ransomware attacks, right? These attacks
Yes.
have been have been troubling all the security experts for long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that also I would say would top my list. And then recently there have been talks about the state sponsored attack, right? If you also see the latest, I guess last week itself, the FireEye hacks,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you have heard about the news, they claim that the state actors were responsible. When I say state actors, it's like China trying to attack India, or China trying to attack US, or India trying to attack Pakistan, or things like that, right? Cyber attacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a state sponsored attack, right? So that is also taking leaps and bounds. Then one of the very interesting field where a lot of work is happening today is deepfakes,
Deepfakes.
right?
Yes.
And the deepfakes are getting tremendous amount of traction because of the challenges they put forward, right? And
Correct.
if you heard, there was a news also that some brothers from Russia or somewhere, they or Ukraine, I guess, they built a app which would replace your
Face with a porn star, I guess, right?
yeah, correct. Face
Yeah.
with a porn star or your body with a porn star, something like that, right? And they did it for fun, but it started getting a lot of
Traction from
traction, a lot of
everywhere.
downloads, and right because it's a bad word out there, right? And
Correct.
you have to be very so deepfakes are really really important, I would say.
Correct. Correct. So, so Shashank, how promising do you think cybersecurity is in terms of jobs? And as we all know, because of this COVID times, we are in the challenging times, right?
Yeah,
So, what areas do you think are the best to look at in terms of cybersecurity? That you have mentioned a few, but again, coming to the jobs,
sure.
yeah.
So I would say cybersecurity is a very very promising field in terms of jobs,
Mhm.
right? And skills I already spoke about a few, right? That what you need. I'll talk about it later. But if you look at the cybersecurity job space, right, there are various areas, right? Typically, you work as a on application security, data privacy, and security as a
Mhm.
network security engineer, or on the cloud security or threat
Mhm.
intelligence. There are various operations, right? But all these operations, all these job openings, right, demand you for some fundamental skills, and some
Mhm.
of them I already spoke about, like problem solving, fundamentals of operating system, fundamentals of network, fundamentals of data structure and all algorithms,
Mhm.
right? Then understanding how exactly the PKI work, right? We talk a lot about cryptography, but understanding how exactly the PKI works, because that is the fundamental today of the all TLS protocols,
Mhm.
right? Then math. Math is
Math.
absolutely critical there. Yeah, mathematics, right? Because no matter which field you are, which area you are working in, there would be some or the other mathematical challenge, statistical challenge that you will have to take and solve.
This is the
Uh,
one thing that we keep on hearing from the different, let's say, professors and guests also, that math is going to be there. You
yes,
can't
yes.
survive without math. Yeah.
Yes, math. I mean, I would say is math is the computer science, right? Computer science
Yeah.
is built on top of math, right?
Correct.
It's so it is going to be there. All your algorithm have some sort of mathematics behind it, right?
Mhm.
So it is going to be there. Debugging is very very important, very very critical skill, as I mentioned.
Mhm.
In addition to some to that, right, what I would say is cybersecurity, because it's a very challenging domain, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
As I already mentioned, that it's like an arm race, right? It's like a cat and mouse game, right? You are
Mhm.
fighting for to beat the other guy, right? And so a lot of time you need a lot of patience and perseverance here, right,
Mhm.
to build your career, right? Because there could be times where you're feeling low, your the things you're applying are not working out properly, but that's part and parcel of everything, right?
Mhm.
So that is there, right? So just to sum up, right, have a strong fundamental.
Mhm.
Cybersecurity is very very promising field. There are different areas of cybersecurity that are out there, right?
Mhm.
Choose what you are interested in. Like for example, I personally, right, I told you I was a network guy from the beginning, and I've built
Mhm.
my skill set on a lot of network tools and network security only, right? So
Mhm.
that is why I'm able to work on the network security, but it is not that I'm just working on network security, right?
Mhm.
I also work on application security. I also look at the cloud part, right? So build one of your core competency, build your fundamentals, and then decide one of the area in which you want to excel, and then march ahead on it,
Correct.
right? And just on a lighter note, since you mentioned COVID times and cybersecurity, this is a meme you should all be looking at, right? I'm not kidding here, right?
Mhm.
If you read any sort of report, the number of cybersecurity attacks happening in the lockdown period has grown multifold.
Yes.
With
So,
everyone being digitally connected now, it
mhm.
is even more challenging.
Mhm. So let's start from ground zero for the students, right? So if someone from the audience wants to jump into the cybersecurity, let's say if he or she gets so motivated after watching this talk or the podcast that he wants to join cybersecurity space, right? So where do you suggest that they start from? Any book, paper, or anything? Maybe a MOOC course or something like that.
Sure. So I would. There are a lot of good books, right? So you can pick any, right? I would
Mhm.
not
Just to name a few.
pick point anything, but what I would say is again, strong fundamental on CS topic. That is the number one priority.
Okay.
Strong debugging skills. Then build yourself by looking into the competition of competitions like CTFs, right? I told you, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Eco CTF is one of the prominent thing run by CMU itself, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
So participate in such competition, and in addition, I guess Hacker Rank, Hacker Earth, all these competitive programming guys are
Mm-hmm.
also coming up with some cybersecurity challenges because there's so much demand in the market and we don't have the people available with the cybersecurity skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of, I guess there are both masters and undergrad students here, right? So I would say for if you're interested in a little bit of research, I
Mm-hmm.
would say start by reading some of the most influential papers on cybersecurity. Here's the link, but I guess if you just go and Google out most influential papers on cybersecurity, you would get a list of them, and there are some very good papers,
Mm-hmm.
very good papers that you need to start looking into.
Okay, so coming to the next question, right? So we often observe that the theory and practice, right, they don't go hand in hand, right? So is this also the case in cybersecurity, or is this an exception around that?
Well, yes, it is. Unfortunately, it is, and
Mm-hmm.
I would say, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Cybersecurity is like any other software field, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it has its own set of challenges, right? And a lot of time, what we see that security is not considered as a part of the design and architecture of the system,
Correct.
right? As I was explaining earlier, right? And IoT devices, right, are glaring example of this particular this kind of mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
This kind of lapses. You pick any Chinese vendor or any cheap IoT device like your security cameras coming
Mm-hmm.
from so many different manufacturers, your smart bulbs coming from so many manufacturers, right? What you would see is because of the competition, right, and because of the hurry to launch the product into the market, security is not given its due consideration, and that effectively leads to a lot of problems, a lot of challenges there,
Correct.
right? So yes, the theory and practice do do falter at point. One of the other example I would want to give, and I would urge everybody listening to this video is go ahead and do some research on it as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? We all know how browsers work, right?
Correct.
And we all use password managers in the browser to remember our password, right?
Correct.
So you log into a new website, use and enter some username and password. Browser throws you a pop-up of saying,
Remember
"Okay, do you
password.
want me to remember the password?" You say
Mm-hmm.
yes. Have you ever wondered how are those passwords stored? Where are they stored?
Uh,
Right? Pick any browser, for example. Pick Chrome, pick
mhm.
Firefox, pick anybody, right?
So should I guess?
I don't know. Students can't guess here right now, so you are the only one who can take a ticket, right? So,
Okay.
but
So yeah.
go ahead, make a guess.
Yeah, so just being, let's say, with a naive suggestion, I would go like, so when we change even devices, right,
Hmm.
those passwords get auto-filled, right? So it's
Yes.
definitely on your device. It's definitely not on your device. It's somewhere between your device and the server or the service provider that you are using.
Okay. So if you
Yeah.
are using Google kind of service, since you are always logged in, right,
Yeah.
those passwords are synced between your device and the cloud.
Mhm.
But typically, I'll tell you. Here's a very interesting thing about this, right?
Mhm.
Somehow, while designing the browsers, what everybody thought was so there's a DB in your
Mhm.
system. If you go to the local data of your Windows file system and search for Google Chrome, you will find a lot of DB. There
Mhm.
is one DB with your login credential. There's other DBs which have a lot of different data about you, right? So it's your entire profile.
Mm-hmm.
Now, interesting thing is what the underlying security assumption here is that since your passwords are encrypted and they're encrypted via the Windows login keys, right? So moment you you have the session, anybody you are logged in into the system, right? Any particular software, any software or any program running on your system can
Mm-hmm.
essentially decipher your passwords, right? So it's like your system contains all the passwords, although encrypted, but not encrypted or not protected enough for to secure it from other applications, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if I run a malicious application, right? If I or even a benign application, let's say an attacker tries to compromise Adobe Reader. I'm not saying it is compromise, but let's say I'm taking an example, right? Attacker manages to compromise and he manages to run a simple 10-line Python script. 10-line Python script. He'll get all the websites you have visited so far, what is your interest, all the username and password for each of those websites, all your credit card data, your location, your phone number, your address, your name, everything, right?
Okay.
Right, and this is very challenging, right? So this is also, I would say, why was not it not designed, why were the browsers not designed to encrypt it with some of the key which only browsers know and browsers can decrypt, right? So there are things like that where theory says something and in practice you implement something which is not exactly matching the principles.
Okay. So you made me worried a bit.
You have to be right. If see, it's about anyone who is aware of their privacy, who is aware of their security, right? Will be panicked by reading and understanding about all this. And I'm not saying that I know it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just Google Chrome password decrypt, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a 10 line of Python code, you will find it and you can just run it to get it.
Okay. So coming to the last question, and then we will be taking questions from. There are few questions over YouTube and few over Slido,
Sure.
right? So just a closing question, right? So like, if you are to give advice to students watching
Hmm.
this podcast, right, and only 3 words. So
Okay.
now you are restricted to 3 words. Okay, so what those 3 words would be?
Uh, I would say fundamentals.
Guys, whoever is listening, please write it down. Yeah, fundamentals,
Fundamentals, then privacy. Be aware of
privacy,
privacy.
mhm,
And then, since it's my area of interest, I would say Internet of Things.
IoT.
Yeah.
So fundamentals, privacy, and IoT. Okay, so thanks a lot, Shashank. Right, it's the session has been very informative. So now I will quickly look through this YouTube chat and Slido to check whether we have already answered the questions or not. Right.
Sure.
Okay. So please tell us how to detect sophisticated APT attacks, which are common nowadays.
Sorry, come again, please.
Please tell us how to detect sophisticated APT attacks.
Uh, APT, Advanced Persistent Threat, right?
Yeah, which
It's
are
not.
common nowadays.
Yeah, they're very very common. They're very challenging to detect, and I'm telling you, it's not easy to detect, right? There's a whole team of cybersecurity experts working day and night to build on top, right? So I can't tell you one okay, do this and you would be able to protect, and do that you'll be able to protect. But I would say just keep following the space. There are a lot of work happening in this area, right? And just be up to date if you are really interested in APTs.
Okay, so the next question is, do you think early startups or companies take cybersecurity lightly?
Yes,
Oh my God.
yes,
Okay.
and I would be surprised if they are not, right? Because from whatever we have seen,
Mhm,
the rush to go to the market, right?
mhm.
The rush to launch your product and validate it in the market, right? Often leads to you ignoring cybersecurity and security principle at first place, right? The example I was giving you, right? A lot of IoT devices today,
Mhm.
they don't have the basic set of cybersecurity principles implemented. Even if you see Amazon Echo, Amazon is a very, very good company, right? When Amazon Echo first version was launched, right, there were a lot of vulnerabilities in it. The debug ports were there, although it was hidden beside the cover. But if you remove the debug port, you can basically latch onto it, right? And there are other vulnerabilities if you have heard of, right? Like somebody can basically send a sound encoded message in some frequency which is not audible, but then it would invoke your Amazon Alexa device and it will make it act, right? So there are multiple such vulnerabilities out there, and a lot of times cybersecurity takes a backseat when you have a rush to bring your product to a market. That happens, yes.
Okay. Another question is like key differences in shipping a product as a cybersecurity developer.
Sorry, come again.
Key differences in shipping a product as a cybersecurity developer.
Shipping a product as a cybersecurity developer, I think you have to be extra cautious, extra careful, right from the beginning, as I was mentioning earlier as well. Your design, your architecture should, in the first place, take into consideration all the assets and then mechanisms to protect those assets. You have to properly do the threat modeling of your solution. I'm not saying that other products don't do it, right? But being a cybersecurity product, right, you have to be doubly sure that you have covered all the grounds properly, right? So it takes a bit more time. It's a much more involved process, I would say. And it takes a lot of skills, and there's a lot of complexity involved in it as well.
Okay, so just two more questions we will take and then we will wrap up. Okay, so the next question goes like, how can brute force attack DOS be prevented in case where Cloudflare or CAPTCHA, etc., is not feasible?
Attack on what? It depends on attack on what you're asking me. Can the
Okay, so just to simplify the question, let's say there can be multiple scenarios where we can't have CAPTCHA, right? So how can those brute force attack on any system be prevented?
where you don't have CAPTCHA, right?
CAPTCHA, yeah, per se.
So again, build your system so that it is strong enough to be resistant from such brute force attacks, right? Don't use crypto algorithms. Typically, the hashing functions or the crypto algorithms which are known to be weak against this brute force kind of attacks, right? And typically, so whenever you're using any sort of key, right, make sure your key lengths and everything is sufficient enough so that doing a brute force attack would take enormous amount of time, which would not be feasible for an attacker to get going with.
Okay. Last, but again, an interesting question. The question goes is like, how do you know, or how do we know that our device is hacked?
Are our devices? Okay. Interesting question, but yeah, if you can use various sort of tools which are there to help you with this, right? Once in a while, keep scanning your network for what kind of devices are connected to your network and what's going on in your network repeatedly. Don't ever keep default password on your router. I know most of the students today also would have default passwords on their home routers, right? And just go ahead and change it immediately. That is one very common exploitation ground. You can use tools like network scanners there are McAfee's mobile safe, and there are other tools, right, which also gives you the list of devices connected to your network, what's going on in your network. They provide you inherent security solutions to protect your system. There are also a lot of gateway specific solution. One is there from McAfee as well, which is Secure Home Gateway Platform. I'm not sure if it's launched in India, but it's there, which basically solution sits on your gateway and protects you from various internal and external attacks, right? So if you so these tools and technologies are there in place to help you out, right? But if you want to do it all by yourself, I
Mhm.
would say start monitoring your system, learn some this kind of scanning tools, and use them to understand what is going on in your network and see if there is any anomalous behavior. Don't leave any of the ports open. Any of the If there are ports open, that essentially means there are servers which are exposed to the network, and anybody can try to attack that service. So there are few checks and simple checks that you can keep running on your network, which will uh, help you understand that your network is secure. Now coming to the application side, I would suggest don't install any applications from untrusted sources. That is the first thing.
That is one
Keep
of the very common mistakes that
Correct.
people make.
Don't fall for these Chinese applications providing you a lot of good features, especially all these beautification softwares and things like that, right? They inherently a lot of time are found to have malware vulnerabilities or malware hidden into them, right? So avoid doing that. Avoid using such apps, right? Always go for good applications. Good. There are, I guess, some application reputation services as well, or some top application. If you search for, just stick to them. If you are playing games, and if you're an avid gamer, I would say take an extra caution when you're playing game, because a lot of time games are used to attack the system. People DDoS on the gaming servers and all, right? So just be cautious, be observant of what is going on, keep your fundamentals strong, and see if the things going on are matching to your fundamentals.
Cool. So by this question, we will be wrapping up this session, Shashank.
Sure.
Thank you very much for coming here, right? And just to enlighten us, this session has been very informative. At least for me, I hope this has been for the audience also, the honest listeners there, right? Thank you for your time, right? Be
Thank
safe.
you. Pleasure has been all mine.
Yeah, right. So myself, Shaura Divedi, I will be wrapping up. Thank you. Happy winters.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye
Have a nice
bye.
day.